talk about the beautiful business of milk today. Yeah, yeah. I got milk. Let's talk about milk. Oh yeah, baby, let's talk about the beautiful business of milk today.
This episode of Got Milk is sponsored by Shunya Agritech, the folks revolutionizing cattle nutrition with hydroponic green fodder. Visit their website at shunya.live for more details or download the Shunya app from Play Store or App Store.
Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something really interesting today. We've got this research paper, and it's all about whether India can really become like a dairy superpower. And to figure that out, we gotta explore India's dairy industry.
It's pretty amazing how much it's changed, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone probably knows by now that India is the world's biggest milk producer.
Right.
But like back in 1970, they were dealing with milk shortages.
Wow, that's a huge turnaround. What happened? Did they just suddenly get a ton more cows or something?
Yeah, it's way more complicated than just counting cows, right?
Right.
So back in the 70s, they started this thing called Operation Flood. It was a huge national initiative that like totally changed their dairy scene. Imagine like a nationwide milk grid connecting all these rural producers to the cities.
Wow.
And it really empowered millions of small-scale dairy farmers.
So it's not just about making more milk, it's about infrastructure and helping people, right?
Totally.
So what kind of results did they actually see?
The results were unbelievable. Think about it. They increased milk production by like 700% in just a few decades.
Whoa.
And today, India is making over 160 million tons of milk every year. That's enough to fill, get this, 258 million liters every single day.
Okay, that's hard to even picture. But what's really impressive is that 70 million Indian farmers are involved in all of this.
Yeah.
That's what, over 105 million cows and buffalo?
Yep, and a lot of these animals are actually fed on crop residues, which is, shows how resourceful the industry is.
Right, getting the most out of what they have. So with all that milk, I mean, they must be like dominating the global milk export market, right?
That's actually where things get a little surprising.
Okay.
Even though they're the top producer, India only has a tiny, tiny share of the global milk export market.
Really? Like less than 1%. Why wouldn't they be selling all that milk everywhere?
There are a few reasons. One is that the amount of milk each cow produces, the milk yield, it's lower in India compared to countries with more industrialized dairy farming.
So it's not just about how many cows they have, it's about how much milk each cow is giving.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there other reasons?
Yeah, another big challenge is that so much of the milk production in India is done on these small farms in rural areas. It makes it hard for them to use, the modern technology that could really make things more efficient.
Right. So they're kind of stuck using older methods while other countries are way ahead.
Yeah, kind of. And then finally, most of the milk they produce is actually used right there in India.
Oh, okay.
Their population is growing fast, incomes are going up, so there just isn't a lot of extra milk left to export.
So they've got to meet their own needs first.
Yeah.
So India's got this balancing act going on. They've got to keep up with their own demand, and at the same time, they're trying to become a bigger player globally.
Exactly. And this is where the research paper gets really interesting. It suggests that entrepreneurship might be the key to unlocking India's dairy industry's true potential.
So it's not just about the big companies, it's about regular people driving the industry forward. I'm really curious to hear more about that. What kind of support would these dairy entrepreneurs need to actually be successful?
Well, the paper it lays out a few key areas, where support could really make a difference. One of the big ones is subsidized electricity, especially for these small farms.
Yeah, makes sense. Electricity bills, they can really add up, especially for smaller operations.
Right. So if they could ease that burden, that would free up some cash for them to invest in other parts of their business.
What other things could really help them out?
Easier access to credit would be huge. Like, imagine if these small-scale farmers, if they could get loans with longer repayment terms. It would let them invest in their farms without being crushed by crazy interest rates or payment plans that are just just impossible to keep up with.
Right. Give them some time to breathe and actually grow their businesses.
Exactly. And then there's the whole thing about breed improvement. The paper, it recommends supporting those high quality local breed cattle.
So it's not just about the quantity, it's about having the right kind of cows, the ones that are adapted to the conditions there.
Exactly. Those local breeds are often they're just tougher. They're more resistant to the diseases that are common in the area, and they can handle the local feed better than some of the fancy imported breeds.
Right. Makes sense. Work with what you've got. So what about technology? Could that play a role here?
Definitely. The paper suggests that making affordable milking machines available could be a game changer for these small-scale farmers.
Oh yeah, a lot of them are probably still doing things by hand, which is which is really tough work.
Yeah, it is. So having these machines would not only make things way more efficient, but it would also help with hygiene, leading to better quality milk overall.
Right. So it's a win-win.
Exactly. And then there's the whole human element, the need for training and education. The paper suggests that training in things like how to manage their feed, how to add value to their products, marketing, and even how to get their milk to the right markets, that could make a world of difference.
Yeah, it's about giving them the skills to not just be farmers, but to be like real business owners.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Give them the tools to run their own show. And speaking of markets, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how much milk people in India are actually drinking, how their tastes are changing.
Right. Got to understand the demand side of things too.
Yeah.
Yep. We've got this really interesting study from 2014 by Kumar and Paraparathu, and they looked at data spanning decades, from like the 80s all the way to the 2000s. And what they saw was this huge increase in how much dairy people in India are consuming.
So milk and all those other dairy products, they're becoming a bigger part of their diet.
They are, yeah. And there are a few things driving this. Rising incomes, especially in rural areas, are a big factor. As people have more money to spend, they're choosing to spend it on good, nutritious food like dairy.
Yeah, it's classic, right? As people do better financially, they want to eat better too.
Exactly. But here's the thing. While overall dairy consumption is going up, there are also shifts happening within the category itself.
What do you mean?
Well, they found that the demand for those traditional products like butter and ghee, it's actually going down, while things like ice cream,
Yeah.
they're becoming way more popular.
Interesting. So it's a shift away from those staples towards more processed foods, the more indulgent stuff.
You could say that. And this shift, along with India's booming population, it creates both challenges and opportunities for the dairy industry.
Right, because they've got to keep up with this growing demand, and it's not just growing, it's changing.
Right. And that leads us to another really important thing that the research highlights: milk quality.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about how much milk they're making. It's about making sure that milk is safe and meets certain quality standards, especially if they want to sell it in other countries.
Absolutely. People everywhere are paying more attention to where their food comes from and how safe it is. So how is India doing on that front?
Well, we've got this article from 2017 by Patel, and he points out a big challenge. See, even though India produces a ton of milk, a lot of it's still unprocessed, and a lot of it's handled by, the informal sector.
So it's not going through those rigorous safety checks that we're used to in other countries with more developed dairy industries.
Exactly. And this raises concerns about hygiene and food safety, which could be a real problem if they're trying to sell more milk internationally.
Right, because even if they have all the milk in the world, if the quality's not there, nobody's going to buy it.
Exactly. But the good news is that the dairy industry in India, it is changing. It's evolving.
Yeah.
There's this other article. This one's from 2014 by Kamkar, and he argues that it's becoming much more consumer oriented.
So they're starting to pay more attention to what people actually want.
Exactly. They're putting more emphasis on things like organized retail, managing the supply chain better, and offering more different kinds of dairy products.
So it's not just about selling plain milk anymore. It's about branding, packaging, maybe even offering things like lactose-free milk or those fancy yogurts.
Exactly. Think brand names, flashy packaging
Hmm.
and even products that are tailored to specific needs and preferences. And this shift, it's being driven by a few key factors.
Like what?
Well, for one, they're just more aware these days.
Mm.
They're more educated about their food choices, and they're looking for better quality and more variety.
So as consumers get smarter, the producers have to step up their game.
Right. He also points to the influence of Western culture. People in India they're exposed to global food trends, things like cheese boards and fancy yogurts, all that stuff. And it's influencing their tastes and creating this demand for a wider range of dairy products.
So it's a mix of things, right? People in India they're earning more, they're more aware of what they're eating, and they're being exposed to all these new trends.
Exactly. And this creates both challenges and opportunities for India's dairy industry.
Challenges in terms of meeting these new demands and opportunities to grow and innovate.
Exactly. But in all this talk about modernization and trends, we can't forget about the heart of India's dairy industry, the millions of small-scale farmers who are really the foundation of it all.
Right, they're the ones doing the hard work.
Yeah. And the research, it definitely addresses their role and the challenges that they're facing. One of our sources, this article from 2013 by Nargunde, it gives a really, really good picture of how dairying is impacting, the social and economic situation in rural India.
I'd love to hear more about that. What does this article say about the lives of these farmers?
Well, Nargunde, he argues that milk production has become like this vital source of income for a lot of these small scale farmers, especially those who rely on seasonal crops or just occasional labor to make ends meet.
So it gives them some stability, a steady income,
Right.
even when things are unpredictable.
Exactly, yeah. The article, it estimates that dairying can bring in as much as 60 to 65% of the income for some of these marginal and small scale farmers.
Wow, that's a huge chunk of their income. It really shows how important dairying is for a lot of people in rural India.
Yeah, absolutely. But even though dairying offers this potential way out of poverty, these farmers, they still face a lot of obstacles.
Like what are some of the biggest challenges for them?
One of the main issues is low productivity. On average, cows in India, they just don't produce as much milk as cows in developed countries.
So even though these farmers they're working incredibly hard, they're limited by how much milk their cows can actually produce.
Exactly. And there are a few reasons for this, like feeding practices could be better. They often don't have access to the best breeding stock, and taking care of the animal's health, it's a challenge too.
Right. So it's a complicated problem with no easy fix. What else are they struggling with?
Another big problem is just getting their milk to market. Many of these farmers, they don't have reliable, fair places to sell their milk.
Oh, so they're kind of at the mercy of middlemen who can set the prices and take advantage of them.
Yeah, pretty much. And on top of that, there's often a lack of infrastructure. Things like milk collection centers, transportation, processing facilities. All of that makes it even harder for them to make a good living.
So it's like they're hitting roadblocks at every turn. Does this article, does it offer any solutions, any reason for optimism?
It does, actually. Even though Nargunde lays out all these serious challenges, he's actually pretty optimistic about the future of India's dairy sector.
Okay, that's good. What does he think needs to happen?
He sees entrepreneurship as the key, as a way to really drive progress and empower these small scale farmers.
So it's about giving them the tools to build their own businesses, not just be milk producers.
Exactly. And this idea, it's echoed in a paper from 2005 by Cha.
Yeah.
He really stresses the importance of providing training and support to these dairy entrepreneurs, especially in things like setting up good procurement networks, making sure the processing is hygienic, and coming up with smart marketing strategy.
No, it's about teaching them how to be successful in business, how to make their farms thrive.
Exactly. But we've talked about how India hasn't really become a big player in the global dairy market yet. Can these small scale farmers, can they really be a part of changing that?
That's a good question. They're facing all these challenges. Can they really compete on a global level?
That's a great point, and it brings us to another layer of this whole story: India's place in the global dairy market and whether they can really grow.
Right, because we know they make a ton of milk, but they're not really exporting much of it yet. What do they say about that?
Well, we've got this article from 2017 in some Kurukshetra magazine, and they really dig into this issue. They point out that even though India is producing a huge amount of milk, their share of the global export market is tiny.
Yeah, we've talked about some of the reasons for that, like the lower milk yield, the small scale production, and the fact that they're using most of the milk themselves. But this article seems to think that India could still become a major exporter.
Yeah, they do. And what's interesting is that they think India is in a really unique position to take advantage of the fact that the demand for dairy is going up all over the world.
What makes them so special in that regard? Why India?
Well, geographically, it's surrounded by a bunch of countries that don't produce enough milk for themselves. Places like China, Japan, Bangladesh, and a lot of the Southeast Asian countries.
So there's this huge market right there, practically next door, and all those countries they're getting richer, they want more dairy.
Exactly. And these aren't just any markets. These are places with huge populations and economies that are growing like crazy.
So India has this chance to step in and become a reliable source of dairy for all these people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the article it stresses that India has to be strategic. They have to have a real plan if they want to make this happen.
So what would that look like? What specific things could they do to become a real dairy exporting powerhouse?
Well, first they got to fix those fundamental problems we've been talking about. They got to get those milk yields up, through better breeding programs and better ways of feeding the cows. And they got to modernize those processing plants so that they can meet international standards for safety and quality.
So build a solid foundation first, make sure the milk they're producing is plentiful and it's good.
Exactly. And then they've got to be proactive about expanding their reach. That means exploring new markets, investing in research and development to come up with new dairy products that people want, and building relationships with partners in other countries.
So it's not just about producing more, it's about quality, it's about innovation, and it's about being smart about who they're selling to.
Precisely. But can they really do all this without leaving those small-scale farmers behind?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Can they really become this global dairy superpower and still support all those small farms?
That's a really important point. And the article, it talks about how important it is to encourage entrepreneurship in the dairy sector as a way to make sure that the growth is sustainable and that everyone benefits.
So it's about empowering those small-scale farmers, giving them a chance to be a part of this bigger vision.
Exactly, yeah. Give them a chance to grow along with the industry. It's pretty exciting vision, and it really comes down to recognizing the potential and having the right strategies in place to make it happen.
It's like India's at this crossroads, they have this chance to not just feed their own people, but to become a major player in the global food system.
Yeah, and the decisions they make now, they're going to shape the future of their dairy industry for a long time.
It really seems like India's dairy industry it's on the verge of something big. But to make it happen, they really got to focus on helping all those small-scale farmers we've been talking about. This research paper, it actually has some specific ideas about how to encourage those farmers to become entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's all about creating the right conditions for them to succeed. One of the big things the paper suggests is subsidized electricity for those small farms.
Yeah, that would be huge. Electricity bills, they can really eat into their profits.
Right. So if they could get some help with that, it would free up some money for them to invest in other things like better equipment or maybe even some training.
What other kinds of support could make a difference?
Easier access to credit would be a game changer. Imagine if these farmers could get loans with longer repayment terms.
Yeah.
That would let them invest in their farms without being buried in debt.
Right, give them some breathing room to grow their businesses.
Exactly. And then there's the whole thing about having the right kind of cows. The paper, it really stresses the importance of those high-quality, local breed cattle.
Right, it's not just about having more cows, it's about having the cows that are best suited to the conditions there.
Exactly. Those local breeds, they're often just tougher,
Yeah.
They're more resistant to the diseases that are common there, and they do better with the local feed.
It's about working smarter, not harder. So what about technology? Does the paper talk about that?
Oh yeah, one of the big recommendations is making those affordable milking machines available.
Oh, right. I bet a lot of these farmers they're still milking by hand.
A lot of them are, yeah. So those machines, they would make things so much easier and more efficient, and would also help with hygiene, which means better quality milk.
Makes sense. And then there's the training aspect too.
Yeah, the paper talks about providing training in all sorts of areas, like feed management and how to add value to their products and marketing and how to get their milk to the right markets.
It's really about giving them the skills to not just be farmers, but to be business owners.
Exactly. It's about empowering them. And when you put all of these things together, the subsidized electricity, the easier access to credit, the support for those local breeds, the technology and the training, it's a pretty hopeful picture for India's dairy industry.
It does feel like they're building some real momentum. There's just so much potential there, not just for the industry itself, but for all those small scale farmers who are really the backbone of it.
It's a great example of how a traditional industry can evolve and adapt to a changing world.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about India's incredible journey from milk shortages to becoming the world's top producer. We've looked at the challenges they face and we've explored the amazing potential they have.
It's been a really interesting conversation, and I hope our listeners have learned something about India's dairy industry and how it all connects to the global food system.
I think what's really stuck with me is that this isn't just a story about milk. It's a story about people, about finding new ways of doing things, and about trying to create a better future.
Well said. And as we wrap things up here, we encourage our listeners to keep thinking about all of this. What other things could shape the future of India's dairy industry? How can technology make things more efficient and sustainable? How can we make sure that everyone benefits from the growth? There are a lot of questions to consider.
There really are. The future of India's dairy industry it's a story that's still being written, and we're all a part of it in some way. Like
I got